Hey guys, welcome back to Danger Planet. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Vision and Flames update from 2023 for Song of Ice and Fire. And he's back, back again. Brendan's back. Tell a friend. Brendan's back. Brendan's back. Brendan's back. Brendan's back. Brendan's back. Hey guys, it's Doug. I'm here with Brendan. Say hi.
Hello, everyone, but I'm not back in black.
No. And today we're going to be going through Song of Ice and Fire, and we're going to be talking about the Season 2 2023 Vision and Flames update that was a big shakeup for the game. It had a lot of different effects on it, but I guess just to start out, Mr. Brendan, why don't you tell us at a 10,000 foot level, what is that update? What's going on with it? How does that work with the core game? Why is this a big deal?
All right, yeah. So I mean, like, basically what this change brought to us, was basically there was a lot of general like ability changes that happened that they cleaned up, that were basically present across all the factions that they wanted to address in just like one sweeping basically article, so that it had the most impact across a bunch of different factions. Some factions got more specific updates based on like where they felt like the units and stuff were landing and sort of their points value, but generally what this update was just a overarching change to a bunch of different like universal rules, so that they could bring some stuff up and bring some stuff down that at least cool mini or not felt that was a problem. So
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable overview. I mean, it's not too dissimilar to any type of large errata patch. This one is the 2023 update. Brandon, is this an annual thing for them? Like, do they do this yearly, or is it more when they feel like the game has reached certain points and it needs to be kind of like updated? How does this usually work?
So we've generally gotten like basically it's sort of like a yearly update. Now, I will say, in my opinion, while it does look like if you were to look this up on your own, on their website, that there were a lot of changes made, which there were. I'm not trying to downplay that, but generally from my own consensus and the consensus of sort of the community at large is like this also wasn't enough. Like, we were expecting sort of like bigger changes, like maybe some new scenarios, stuff like that, but I can see both sides of it. They didn't want to change the game too much for anyone newer coming in because they saw those growing pains when they rolled out the 2021 big rules update, season 1 update, when cards that were already basically outdated were getting shipped out to stores, and that caused a lot of blowback. So I can basically see either side of it. I felt that could have they done a little more? Yes, but am I overall happy with sort of how this update brought some changes to some problematic rules, and I think some factions that were sort of down in the dumps get sort of propped up a little bit. I'm happy with that as well. So I'm sort of playing both sides of the field, and you can't get mad at me about it. I mean, you can, but
I mean,
I don't know
you can. So. I don't know you. That's not my parse.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, let's talk about some of the bigger. Let's talk about some of the bigger individual mechanics changes, because there's a couple of things that even before you and I chatted, I was looking at this and I was like, oh shit. Thank God they did something about expert duelist. Like, and I have Jaime Lannister, right? Like, I play Lannisters, but that was just such a bad play experience on a 3-up to lose like a specific upgraded character from a unit or something. That was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that at a high level. Let's talk a little bit about the ones. We don't have to go through every single one of them, guys. We're gonna post a link to the Visions and Flames 2023 general update that was published on February 28th. We're going to post a link in here so you guys can follow along with us as we're talking, and we'll actually show on screen some of the stuff here. But why don't we talk about some of the core main ones? I mean, obviously I spilled the beans a little bit. Expert Duelist is one of them, but take us through a couple of the big ones.
Yeah, so I mean, we can just jump right into Expert Duelist, right? So this is sort of like, while it's not really a rule that would really come up that much in sort of like, you know, like higher table play, stuff like that, only because like getting attachments into your list, especially like the expensive ones, like your 2-3 cost, even 1 point attachments for some, you know, for some factions and some lists, like people were disincentivized by taking it because, you know, A, points values are pretty tight in this game to begin with, but B, if someone just rolls up with an expert duelist randomly, and in the old expert duelist they could just snipe your character out on a 3-up, that's like a 66% chance that you paid those 3 points for nothing. Like, get wrecked
For
like,
nada.
for no reason. And then, you know, the big boogeyman of expert duelist was always Khal Drogo, because he could threaten those very impactful attachments for your units from like a bajillion miles away, and he was immune to it because expert duelist said infantry attachment only. So he would, even if he missed cutting your dude's head off, your dude sitting there who lived couldn't attack him back if they had expert duelist because he's on a horse. Get wrecked. So basically what they changed is now they've changed the 3-up roll to kill an attachment from expert duelist to a 5-up, which I think is much better. It basically just means like you still have that option to target an attachment, but you're probably more than likely, if you're, you know, if you're playing an expert duelist attachment, you're probably just going to go for the free 1-point wound to trigger any like panic effects you might have, stuff like that, or just as an extra damage buff to the unit. But that, you know, that choice to sort of snipe an attachment is still available to you. I think this also help with people feeling more confident in putting attachments in their units, especially in probably the more like casual gameplay where, you know, people want to take those special characters and, you know, those characters that we love from the books and stuff in their units and just
And want them to be like, you know, alive.
Yeah. Live their best life, Doug. So,
or really any life, just be alive.
Yeah.
All right, that makes sense, and I think that's a good breakdown of how that affected a pretty feel bad Z mechanic, in my opinion. That was very high probability to happen to you, basically. What do you, if you had to pick out, let's say 1 or 2 others, what would be your top 3 picks for these changes? What are the 2 others, basically?
So the next one I think is the relentless rule. This is getting a lot of like talk on the internet. Basically, what relentless was an ability that allowed you to basically activate a unit outside of activation, have them perform a free attack action, which is what it was most notably used for, without activating any units. So not only were you getting activation economy on your opponent, which is extremely powerful in a game like this, but you were also getting free attacks. What they've changed about it now is basically whenever a unit that has the relentless ability on them is attacked, they may perform a melee attack action. This doesn't trigger any free actions. It's not an order, so that you can't like refill it if there's a way for you to switch out like to refill your order tokens. Basically, it was their attempt to sort of try and quell the sort of overpoweredness of the ability. But what they accidentally did, which may have them need to revisit the rule again, is that the way it is worded now, if 2 units that have relentless like engage each other, if one of them attacks, then the other one attacks them back, which triggers relentless again because it doesn't have a max 1 per round thing. So basically, if 2 units with relentless attack, it's an infinite loop of killing each other until one person decides to like, you know, say I give, I don't want to attack anymore. I think
what if they're like in absolute Chad fashion, they're like,
oh yeah, I mean,
no, gentlemen, this was the intention.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious. So I hope they don't change it too quickly. But I do get that, like, you know, this sort of brings up more gameplay issues. So some people sort of think that
call them gameplay issues. We call them gameplay opportunities, Brendan.
Yeah, gameplay memes, in fact.
Yeah.
But like, you know, if a rule is, from a game design standpoint, if a rule is giving like sort of your design team this much trouble, it might just be easier just to remove it altogether and
You
revisit
just
it
errata
later.
the errata too, you know? Just suck it
Yeah.
up. Be like, hey, like legit, this is what we meant. Stop being
Yeah.
Muppets to the internet. This is what we meant. Stop being Muppets.
Yeah, but they're paid to like, read, right? Like to read the words,
I was elected to lead this
not
game
to
system.
read.
All right, what's your last one? You got so I
Um,
think Relentless and Expert Duelist are two really good call outs. You got
Yeah.
one more call out that we can talk about that we
Yeah.
got time for.
I
And then
think
we got other things to talk about, sir.
Yeah, so I think probably the one that people are probably going to be most familiar with is the Warcry change. Warcry was an order that basically you could use it at the start of any turn, target an enemy in long range, and you perform a morale check on the unit that had the Warcry ability. If they passed the morale check, the targeted enemy unit would be panicked and vulnerable, which was a huge basically debuff to both your armor, basically your armor defense, and your basically your morale defense. Now how they've changed it is that when you trigger Warcry, you are either panicked or vulnerable, not both. I personally like this change. It means that if you really want to like start like debuffing units in a high basically in a high volume, you need to take more than one Warcry unit rather than just having like one sniper of Warcry. It also means that stuff with like a good morale or units with good morale will need to be more prevalent in your list if you want to get the most out of it, or it'll just take Warcry off the table and give you just basically more list building opportunity in that way. I think where people probably have the most issue with Warcry was with its changes to Warcry in basically the Greyjoy faction, where Asha was sort of a extremely efficient attachment for the faction, being able to give out Warcry and also bubbles of morale, and then her commander version having the Warcry basically card that said panicked and vulnerable on it. They also changed to be the nerfed version of Warcry, where I know we talked about a little bit about this before our recording, Doug, where I think they could have just kept the commander card version as the old version and just called it like War Shout instead, like an upgraded version just printed on a card. That way she keeps a little bit of power after nerfing her through other rules changes, but they still get to keep that debuff ability in the commander deck.
Yeah, which I think is reasonable.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. They sort of did some changes to Greyjoys that maybe were a little heavy-handed, but might bring up some better list building opportunity. We'll wait and see.
I mean, that brings us into the next biggest section here.
Oh wow!
Why don't you give
Almost
us
like I did it on purpose.
Oh my god! Almost like I did it on purpose. Yeah, give us your biggest losers and your biggest winners from this update, basically.
All right. So biggest losers. I don't.
As a concept,
it's,
they can be concept.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
But in general, you get what I'm asking.
Yeah. I think the community would probably say the biggest losers were Greyjoys. They were sort of like a lower to middle of the pack faction to begin with, and then they had all these changes come up. With basically nerfs to their more powerful characters, being Expert Duelist with Crawl, changes to Hardened from Baelor Blacktide, basically the changes to Warcry from Asha, her captain of the Black Wind, and then the Kraken's daughter version as well, that I sort of touched on just before. And then also the biggest change is, as we talked about before with the Relentless change, a bunch of attachments that had that Relentless rule printed on them that sort of gifted it to the units that they were attached to. A lot of them were 3-point attachments that got discounted to 2-point attachments because the rule or the ability got sort of quote unquote nerfed in a way. But Victorian stayed at 3 points, and everyone was like, hey, cool mini or not, is this a mistake? And they were like, finger guns, no.
Chad
So-
style. No. Dude,
yeah.
that's what I'm saying, man. I hope they come back and they're like, hey, like, come on, like, what's the deal with this relentless thing? And then they just look at you and they go, relentless. And then like a Mortal Kombat style, you know? Every time that you like,
but
those
no
two trigger
change.
off each other.
Just a
Yeah.
promotional video. No
Just a promotional video based in old 32 to 18-bit pixeled one-on-one fighting art styled after Street Fighter / Mortal Kombat.
Yeah,
That's what I'm looking for on my end.
I love it. Yeah. So I mean, I think they could be quote unquote a biggest loser. On the other side of that, though, I think that Asha was just so much of a slam dunk pick over other commanders for the faction that she sort of had a Mance Raider effect for the faction. Obviously, not to the same degree, but to where like it was basically pigeonholing the faction into this one basically sort of play style and list where, you know, because, you know, she was basically fixing the faction's greatest weakness, which is their, you know, less than stellar morale. But it sort of didn't leave anybody to like want to play other stuff in terms of like tournament play. So I mean,
well,
see
from a
both
design
sides,
mechanic.
but-
From a design mechanic, whenever anything
Yeah.
is sticking that far out above any of the other, like choices,
Yeah.
I feel like it's rife for correction.
Yeah.
But I feel like, again, from a design standpoint, you have two choices when there's an underpowered faction generally, and the thing that's sticking out is making it viable. You can bring that down a little bit, but I think, in my opinion,
You need to bring
also
everything else up.
not everything, but some other things. At
Yeah.
least maybe one or two other stat cards on units
Yeah.
to give those Greyjoy players.
Yeah.
some-
I will say that I do like the changes to their Black Tide Chosen, where they basically took the place of Asha, where they give a morale buff, not setting their stat to 5, but giving it a +1. And then they also gave their House Harlaw Reapers basically a better attack stat and some changes to their Reaper's Favor special rule that allows them to sort of do multiple things off triggering that ability. So those two units got a bit of a buff. I hope to see more of them on the field.
I just wish they got like one other unit at least. Like
Yeah.
I like, for example, man,
Something a little
and
bit.
we might talk about this a little bit later. Maybe you don't bring it up. It's up to you under your purview. But I mean, I was a very happy Lannister, and like
Yeah.
I got changes that I didn't even think needed to be made necessarily, and I was like, wow, this is dope. Like, all these
yeah. I think we'll talk about it a little bit for sure.
But then I guess one of the other biggest, I mean, we just got to call it out, right? Because we have to say it. Unless we say it, it's not a thing. I mean, Mance got schwangled.
Yeah, they took a page out of the show and just sort of lit that dude on fire in front of everybody. Which
Send a message.
again, I think is okay, because Mance Raider was not okay.
Bananas.
Yeah, he was not okay. So I mean, he was basically pigeonholing the whole faction, both on a casual standpoint and a competitive standpoint. I love all the changes that they made for Free Folk. I like the change to Endless Horde, basically making it an attachment card, and you only get a unit of Raiders, where you have to actually, like, the unit has to die first before you get it, because in games where like your Free Folk opponent just starts with Endless Horde and then they just play it on like turn 2 or even turn 3, and they're like, hey, I know you haven't killed any units yet, but I'm getting a free unit of Raiders, like that 4-point action economy that doesn't give you your opponent any victory points regardless of how crappy the unit is, that can also cap objectives, stuff like that like that's just too strong an ability. Like if that player saw both cards, you were playing essentially 8 points up on your opponent for free. So like, come on, man.
Come on, dude. What the fuck?
Yeah. So I mean, I like that change. The changes to coordination tactics, I like. They just sort of cleaned up the verbiage on that, and then the changes to outflank were overall a buff to anybody who could use outflank. That's stuff that you can check on basically the change log that we'll have linked at the bottom of the video. Just makes it sort of easier to trigger. That doesn't require basically an NCU to take the maneuver zone from you. So that's overall, I think, better. Plus, they also buffed Mag the Mighty. randomly. He's no longer 9 points. He's 5 points for the commander version. So like, hey man,
That's
Monster
a pretty
Mash
big
is
boy
back.
drop.
Yeah, Monster Bash has some legs. We'll see. I'm excited.
I think that's going to be a fun list to play and play against. But
Yeah.
I just like giants, basically.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, who doesn't like a giant?
yeah.
Now for probably like big winners, I would probably say the biggest winner is Martell's, because they literally had one thing changed out of the whole faction, which just had to do with the expert duelist change. A lot of people think that this isn't okay, considering how strong Martells are. They are currently sitting at number 2 in the rankings behind Free Folk on ASOIAF stats. But I mean, they're a newer faction. They don't have a lot of units. I get not wanting to change them up too much, because you still want, you want to see sort of where everything lies. But if you were to go off the community and see how like people are just nonstop complaining about it, you could say that nerds are just, complaining to complain, or that the faction actually has some sort of general systemic issues with how basically its entire play style is.
Whoa, sir. Before we get into throwing the word systemic issues around, let us both just validate for a moment that nerds will now, always have been, and always will be salty when something does or doesn't happen around a game errata change.
Hey,
I mean, we both know this to be true.
Yeah. I mean, I personally think that the national meal of nerds should be just salt and vinegar chips. But
I mean, 1, because they're delicious. 2, because it's hilarious. But
yes. Counts.
How many? I guess a question that I have for you is, how prevalent was expert duelist across that faction?
It's not. Only Oberyn, the Red Viper version, has it.
All right. Because I was gonna say I mean, a thing to take into account is whether or not they had it on a lot of units. Because if they did, then that was a
I mean,
substantial downtick.
That's something that I didn't even think of. Is that like, most factions have like at least 1, if not 2, like expert duelist sort of characters in their entire like faction base. But maybe with this change to expert duelist, we see more attachments come out with expert duelist.
I mean, it makes it less of a mechanic that would just be like
problematic mechanic.
Problematic to have across your whole army.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine what that? I won't dwell on it for too long. But can you imagine if like in the old rules you had like 4 or 5 units with expert duelist on it, snagging characters on 3-ups? Like nobody would ever get a character.
A free wound every time they attacked. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be gross.
Yeah. Yep. And I think personally is like probably another big winner is Targaryens. We saw big points drops basically across the faction from Unsullied officers due to the relentless change going from 3 to 2 points. We saw all the dragons drop from 8 to 7 points, basically, effectively getting the mother of dragons basically debuff in points. So maybe we'll see Targaryens sort of come up out of the ranks where they're sort of basically sitting like above neutrals right now in terms of playability. So I think I don't think I ever want to go back to the like, the Royal Air Force of dragons just like 1-shotting or 2-shotting units out of nowhere, but we'll see as that changes.
We don't need to talk about those dark days.
I don't think anyone wants to. And then another big winner, or probably the last winner that we'll probably discuss, is your faction, Doug, the Lannisters.
Let's go, the rich get richer, baby.
They got some nice points changes. We saw their Castle Rock Honor Guard get a buff in points going from 8 to 7, and then also getting a movement buff from 4 to 5. So now they're a 5-speed 3-up infantry with solid morale and some good effects. So they'll probably see tables. The terrible House Clegane Brigands cavalry unit went from 7 to 6 points. Maybe they'll sniff a table. Maybe not. Who's to say? Yeah, big maybe there.
I mean, I know Solo Clegane on Horsey is gonna keep seeing tables though. That guy rocks.
You love that guy.
He's great.
But
he also triggers a lot of the death mechanic for me. Because through the death mechanic buff, You just throw him out there, you make him delete something, he dies, and then he triggers the mechanic for you. He's great. I love him.
And then the big change that I didn't see really coming at all was Lannister Halberdiers going from 6 points to 5 points.
For no reason at all.
For almost no reason, it seems.
Cool, thanks. We'll take it.
I mean, people are free to disagree with me online. Of course, I'm no like expert, but I really feel like that could have just been Mountain Men. Not to make all the Lannister changes basically House Clegane oriented, because a lot of them were, but like, why
they should
not?
have made Mountain Men playable. Like, Halberds were already playable.
Like Mountain Men
They're already good.
are playable, but they need attachments to basically make them playable. So they're not a 6 point unit. They're at least a 7, if not 8 point unit.
Yeah,
which is too much.
They need
if
to
you
be playable.
If you drop the unit down to 5 points, knowing that they sort of need a little bit extra anyway to really like function as a combat unit, they're essentially staying at 6 points, but you have the option to just take them bare bones at 5 if you want to.
I think that would have been a very reasonable change.
Right? But instead, Lannister Halberdiers, 5 points.
Let's go.
With Spearman stats, Sundering, and set for charge, which is wild.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah,
I'm really excited about that.
And then we saw buffs to Joffrey Baratheon, first of his name. They got rid of the King is Dead rule and added Ors to the crown for him. So now your opponent doesn't get extra VPs for killing his unit, and your whole army doesn't become panicked randomly.
Dude, it means that I get to try him out now. I have him painted because I was like when I was buying
unit.
Yeah, I have everything painted. I just never played him because he's not good until this change.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, those that's sort of my sort of take on it. We just saw basically more like sort of parallel changes to the other factions that I don't think were as impactful. Starks will be fine. I don't see them changing too much where they are at sort of the middle lower of the pack. Right now sitting at ranking 6 out of the factions. But maybe they get a little bit of a buff with the changes to their units. And then Night's Watch, some changes, some buffs here. Jon got nerfed because they took Rally Cry away from him and had his Furious Charge. Jon's not really looking to charge units anyway, so I mean that's fine. I think it was a little too much healing anyway. Maybe we'll see some changes there. And other than that, I don't see much happening with neutral factions either. Like, can I just say this? Shout out to pure neutral players. Shout out to you guys. You guys are the real MVPs coming out here. Yeah. I mean, you're basically Bolton or bust, but if you're just playing Mod Podge neutral, just know that I respect you more than anybody in your entire life.
you a real one, and I see you
IRL.
Thanks, Brendan.
You dropped this crown, King.
Okay, well, given all of that, any big takeaways? Anything that you're either expecting to see as a change from this edition when you hit the tables? Anything you're expecting to see as a shakeup on the meta side, on the competitive side of play? What are your big, either you're looking forward to this thing or you're a little trepidatious because you think XYZ might happen as a result of, this update?
I'm excited to see Targaryens come on the coming up. I'm excited to see where Martells sort of fall, to see if like the community is right and sort of that they're the boogeyman that everyone thinks that they are, or if people just haven't found a good way to sort of counter them as of yet. Because even the game's been out for like a while, and Martells have, while even being the newest faction, they've been out for a good amount of time. But I mean, the overall like community, I think, while growing, especially at as a steady pace as it is, it's still relatively small. So like stuff gets skewed. Maybe not a lot of people are playing against Martells because they had a bad experience. I'm not really sure. Do I think that they are the boogeyman that everyone thinks they are? I think they are to a point.
I think they are.
But but we just sort of have to wait and see. I don't think that Greyjoys are in as bad as position as everyone believes them to be. I know it doesn't feel good to be a Greyjoy player right now, but I mean, hold your heads up. I think there's still some stuff to find in there.
Hold your heads up, Greyjoy and Neutral Kings.
Yeah,
We
please
still
don't.
love you.
Please don't drown. Like you might worship the drowned god, but I don't think it's gonna be as bad as everyone assumes it's gonna be. So yeah, and probably my Christmas list or my hopefuls is that we see, if not complete changes or a complete new rule set of scenarios, I just hope that we get like maybe like one or two relatively soon, that we don't have to wait a whole year, because as somebody who's been playing the game for a while now, like it's exciting that in our area the game is growing, so like newer players are just getting sort of,
I mean, our league is popping off. We have a bunch of people.
Yeah,
we have a lot of players.
They have at my buddy's shop, they have a new league starting off with like I think 11 or 13 players as well, when they basically started at 0 like all of 3 weeks ago. So
that's pretty cool.
That's quite a jump. But yeah, but I'm just saying that sort of as like a more veteran player, like I've been playing with these scenarios for like almost 2 years, year and a half, right?
How many net total scenarios are there existing in the game right now?
Outside of like the random like narrative ones, I believe that there are 11, and 9 of them are used for tournament play, basically.
Okay, so you've been playing with the same 9 scenarios for about 2 years, looking for a change, maybe?
Yeah, anything, a crumb. Come on, like.
That's funny. All right, cool. I mean, I think the biggest things to take away though are generally pretty positive signs. I mean, you said it a couple of times. This game is continuing to grow, both on a global standpoint and at least for us locally on the East Coast here, we can see it, which is really cool because it tells us that the game is here to stay. It's not going to be brushed away. It's not going to go anywhere. That's going to keep being supported, which is great for me. I think this is the best rank and flank game I've ever played. If you're looking for a rank and flank system, I think it's great. I mean, Brendan plays a lot of rank and flank, and so he's not going to make, I don't think, that level of grandiose statement that I'm making right now. But it is a really good game system,
it's really low floor, high curve.
Yeah, and if you're interested,
the game itself is so easy to play actively.
Yeah, and if you're interested,
is the difficult part
in like low fantasy setting, which is, guess what I would call this, low fantasy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah, it's really pretty good. So keep an eye on the channel, guys. We're gonna be doing continued coverage of Song of Ice and Fire.
Not Fire and Ice.
Not Fire and Ice. Fire and Ice is a really, it's not that good. It's like a noodle shop in Boston, and they do all you can.
Calling it a noodle shop is bold, Doug.
Yeah.
It's
forgiving.
It's something else. Google it. It's
anyway. Keep an eye peeled on Danger Planet. We're gonna be doing more on game coverage for this, and we'll see you next time, guys. Say goodbye to the internet, Brendan.
Goodbye, internet. Brandon. Shout out to Brandon.
You know what the worst thing Talk has ever done? Like the most annoying thing she's ever done, and I'm still suffering for it. One time, I don't really cook, but like this, for some reason, one time I had a bag of flour in my kitchen, and this little fucker jumped onto the table, grabbed the bag of flour, dragged it into my bedroom because that's where she sleeps. So whenever she does anything mischievous, she's often known to bring things into the bedroom, punctured it, like threw it all around, coated my entire room, including the bottom of my bed. And so even today, when I go in there, there's still areas that are covered in flour because of her. She's a little dead, dude. She's a little dead. Oh, yes, you are. I'm going to take your jingly necklace off you, little sweetheart, so that you don't jingle jangle during the interview. How else will the people of the internet know what happened, Talk, if we don't update them? We got to update the people of the internet, little buddy. Is it Song of Ice and Fire or Song of Fire and Ice? Is that like the chicken and the egg thing?
It is ice then fire, because you got to melt something, right?
Wait, what
So
did I just say?
First, what did you just say?
Did I say Ice and Fire or Fire and Ice?
Well, fire and ice is that really bad buffet in Boston. So
I think that's what I said. I think that's what I said. No, I know what you're talking about. It's like the hibachi place.
Yeah, tisk tisk, Doug.
So it's Ice and Fire then? We should probably
Ice
do that
and
again.
fire.
Yeah, okay. Song of Ice and Fire. All right. Well, take two. Adam, this one will probably be hilarious for the outtakes at least, you know?
You can't
All
even talk.
I can talk. You can't talk. You're a towel.
No,
All right.
you're a towel.
All right. A thing. All right. See ya. All right. See you later, Mr. Brennan.
Goodbye, Mr. Dad.
See ya. Good work.
Thank you, Dad.
Hey guys, welcome back to Danger Planet. This is Doug. I'm here with Mr. Brendan.
Hello.
And today we are going to be talking about the Vision and Flames update for 2023 for Song of Ice and Fire.
This might change a little bit. Obviously, they'll get some beef.
But you get what I'm saying. I think that those are the four questions, and it basically just becomes a conversation between you and she's eating the dry food without even anything in it. That's how hungry she was.
Don't bring attention to it. Then maybe
I know. Just keep doing what I'm doing. Yeah. Don't worry, little missus. Nothing special happening here. I'm just gonna take a pee-pee. I really didn't think she'd eat that. I thought I was gonna have to like mix shit into it. She's the most spoiled little dog you've ever seen in your life. I mean, and I get you understand why. It's like, remember when I had that like thing and I was like, I'm just gonna give it to the dog, and it was like a cheesesteak sub or something. Yeah.
I
this
was
little
like,
dog.
This man's is just gonna order a whole new cheesesteak stub.
Yeah, and give it to his dog. Give the other one to his dog. I made sure that there was no onions in it, and I gave it to the pup, and she just was like, "Oh, this is delicious. Thank you, sir. It's a cheesesteak. I love cheesesteaks." She didn't say that, but
yeah, but who doesn't love a good cheesesteak?
You could tell that's what she was saying in her little head, you know?
Come on, Doug. Who doesn't like a good cheesesteak?
I like a good cheesesteak. I know the pupper does. I ate a burrito. I fed the dog. I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to ask you on behalf of the internet what's going on with Game of Thrones, basically.
Aspartame.
Yeah, aspartame. Aspartame is not good for you, really, honestly.
Oh, really?
You don't want to eat too much aspartame because it's fake sugar.
What about Ovaltine?
Ovaltine's great. Ovaltine's fucking delicious. You know, as I get older, I actually feel like those health product cookies and all that diet shit, the more you look into it, it's just absurd chemicals. You might as well just fucking go for a run in the morning and eat whatever the fuck you want, you know? Code Red Mountain Dew was the shit, dude. Oh my god, you drank Mountain Dew, you never had Code Red?
No, I've had it. Awesome. I didn't drink 2 liters of it though.
My game store jam was there was a shitty little Dollar Mart around the corner from us, and then right across the street from that was an Italian place. And the Italian place would make you cheeseburger subs for $6.50 a piece, large cheeseburger subs. Mm-hmm. Then you go across the street and you get a bag of Doritos for $1 because it's a dollar store, but it's a giant bag of Doritos. And then you get a 2-liter of Mountain Dew Code Red for $1. So for $8.50, you had a giant cheeseburger sub with which you would open. You get extra ketchup, extra mustard, and then you would throw in all of the Doritos. So you would like kind of crush them up a little bit, not too much because you want the consistency. You sprinkle on top of the cheeseburger sub with extra ketchup, extra mustard, and then you set yourself up at the hobby table.
Yes.
And you just fucking eat a giant cheeseburger sub as a 13-year-old covered in Dorito crumbs while everybody else is trying to paint Warhammer miniatures. And then some of the kids will like be like, "Yo, can I get some of the Doritos?" And the adults will be like, "Yo, get the fuck away from me right now. Go over there and eat your cheeseburger sub." But I never did. I always sat right at that table and I always ate the cheeseburger sub. Sorry, but that it's important that you understand that was my. I got that like every Saturday when I went to the game store. Like every Saturday, because it was under $10 and it was a shitload of food. Oh, sorry, the other component, because I would usually be a tenner, because the Padre would give me a tenner,
Mhm,
when I was
yeah.
like 13 or 14. He was like, here's a tenner, go get lunch, because I'd be gone the whole day. He just dropped me off at the game store.
Mhm.
The other secret was that with the residual you would scrape together, you would just use it to buy gummies. So I would buy gummy worms at the dollar store as well.
Nice.
Yeah, that was the residual.